gesticulation. No crazy. No crazy.
Here we go.
All right. Oh, sorry. I was struggling through that one.
We want to give you as much valuable information as possible regarding traveling internationally, and especially traveling internationally with small kids.
Do you remember how the trip to the Philippines originally started?
Yes. We were really stressed out. And Grant was looking for an inexpensive way to get away from the stress and decompress so that we can regain our composure and reconnect as a couple and reconnect as a family. So he started looking for cruises because that's, quick. It's like, 3 days to a week. And usually if you can get, especially repositioning cruises, you can get a really good value. So that's what he started to do, was look for cruises. And I think he found a really good cruise and a really good cruise rate to Mexico, I believe.
Yep.
And it was literally, he was going to click the button, the purchase button.
It was in the cart, all the rooms selected and everything.
Yes. And he said, you know what? Before I click, what the heck? Let me look at what the airfares are going to be to the Philippines, because we're planning a trip in 2020 anyways. Let me just see what it's like. So he does his crazy research as he does, and he stumbled upon really good airfare. Now I'm talking for 2 kids, 2 adults. We're having to pay 3 adult fares and then the taxes for.
It was 2 adult fares, 1 child fare, which has discounted taxes. So anyway, overall, it ended up being about $391 for the adult tickets, about $334 for the student rate or the child rate with taxes, and then Paulina was just taxes, and it was about $92, I believe, something like that.
And was it cheaper than the cruise?
And so the flights and everything, it ended up being more than the cruise, but we were there 3 weeks, and if we were to compare it to 3 weeks of the cruise, it would have been way more expensive. So it was a bit more expensive, but in terms of the flights, that price, I mean, I had to jump on it. When you can find flights internationally for less than $400 that go trans-Atlantic, trans-Pacific, take it. Do it. You will not regret it. And so another thing, our strategy. So this is what I totally recommend if you're looking for cheap flights, not only signing up for newsletters and stuff like that, but if you go to Google Flights, so flights, I believe it's flights.google.com, and you put in your information of what you're looking for, you can look and browse by month, and it'll show you the prices per month based on that day and whatever. So I go through and I look for what is the cheapest day I can travel. And if you're able to work your schedule around that, you're able to save thousands of dollars in the long run with travel.
And you can set up price alerts. So if you're not ready to commit to purchasing airfares at that particular moment, Google Flights can email you alerts notifying you whether or not the airfares are about to increase or about to decrease. It's really hot, by the way. It's like 100 degrees right now.
Where we ended up going was Cebu. And the reason that we chose Cebu is that basically the 2 international flights that come in, or locations that come in from the U.S., are either to Manila or to Cebu. And when we looked at what the options were around there, Manila's a big city. There are places to go from there, but the amount of distance that you have to travel to get to each of our next destinations was so much. And with little kids, we said we don't want to be traveling as much as we would if it were just us. And so we said, okay, Cebu is great because there were 3 or 4 of our top destination spots right there. One of which being MOALBOAL, which You have to go.
Oh my God.
It is amazing. The sardine run there
Magical.
is unlike anything I have ever seen in my life. It is just spectacular.
Come to Jesus moment.
And that really, it
was
was that
awesome.
I was looking at MOALBOAL, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I was looking at it, and I had to go there too. And so what ended up happening, we didn't end up making it to Siargao. We didn't end up making it to Palawan, which is another place we really wanted to go. Because flying in between, it just, for the cost, it just didn't make sense. We have to do that on another trip, which I'm not upset that we're going to have to schedule another trip to the Philippines. It absolutely exceeded my expectations. What about you? She's speechless.
That's rare, folks. You can be a baller for a fraction of the cost. Like the resorts and having to, there was multiple times where we had waterfront properties, you know, whether it was a standalone bungalow right on the ocean, or it was, you know, a small boutique hotel that had a waterfront view. If we had that kind of view in America, we would have to pay 10 times as much as we pay, at least. So you can enjoy yourselves and kind of like breathe and not, you know, be freaked out about breaking the bank and like looking at, you know, you're not going to have sticker shock the way you would in the US.
We booked about 80% of our stays through Agoda. And if you're traveling around Asia and you want an incredible budget place to stay, Agoda is by far the way to go. I would look at multiple different sites and compare them, and the same place would almost always be lower on Agoda, or at least the same. And they have great properties that you can't find on any of the other sites. So I highly recommend Agoda. We have a link below. It is an affiliate link, so we do get a little cut if you click through there and finish a booking. The last day or two, we do like to stay somewhere nice and just decompress and relax before having to fly home. That is something that we do enjoy doing. It's nice to have a nice place to stay at the beginning of your trip and at the end of your trip. After a long flight, it's nice to have a comfortable bed. I wanted to talk about the bus experience, leaving from the Northern Bus Terminal in Cebu, going to MOALBOAL. MOALBOAL. I'm terrible at pronouncing the name of it. And you'll notice throughout the video, I do a terrible job because someone corrects us down the way as to how it's supposed to be said. Although some of the people there called it MOALBOAL, not MOALBOAL. So I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. Comment below. Tell us, how do you actually pronounce it? Link us to a video that pronounces it. Do something. Show us how it's done. We're not sure. MOALBOAL or MOALBOAL. Not totally sure. But anyway, on the bus ride from the Northern Bus Station to the MOALBOAL, what we did is you go in and you have to get in basically a line. And this line wraps around on the chairs, and it's the same line for the air-conditioned and the non-air-conditioned bus. And so for us, that made it very confusing, because with the kids, we didn't want to take a non-air-conditioned bus. They get very unhappy, especially Paulina, if she overheats.
Oh, man.
And we just didn't want to worry about that on the trip. It's not that much more. It's a little bit more expensive to take the air-conditioned buses, but I totally recommend it. They're more comfortable unless you're taking a short trip, especially the long, multiple-hour trips. Get on the air-conditioned bus. It's worth waiting for. But at the bus station, people kind of bum rush out of that line. And especially when you have a lot of bags and you have small children, we ended up missing a bus because people kind of just jumped in front of us. So the second one, I talked to a security guard, and then we kind of strategized so that we could get on. And he helped us to make sure he got me to where I could get, because I'm carrying all of our bags basically at this point, because what we had to do is we had to split up. So Joanne had to take the girls onto the bus, and I had to go and put all of our stuff underneath. So I'm carrying a baby backpack, all of our backpacks, all of our gear, to try to stuff underneath. And luckily it worked out, but it was a bit of a rush. It was very stressful. It wasn't very clear. It was very poorly organized. So just keep that in mind. Prepare, go early. You might miss a bus, you might miss 2 buses, just based on how long that line is as well. And when we were there, it looked like we would have air conditioning, but that was not the case. They have a bunch of air conditions in there, but none of them are going. They have some fans that circulate air, but we found relief underneath the doors where they have the air that shoots down to keep the air conditioning in.
Yeah, right at the threshold.
That's the fan. We just went and stood under there, and that really helped cool us down so that we could be not as hot. Something to keep in mind too is that, especially traveling throughout Asia, when you need to use a public restroom, they usually cost money. Unless you're in a nice mall, and even then, a lot of them still charge money. It's not much. It's maybe a quarter, something like that. But just remember to keep change on you in case you do need to use the bathroom, because it's a necessary thing sometimes. Especially, for example, we were stuck at that bus station for quite a while. We ended up having to go buy some water and having to use the restroom, and it was good that we had some coins and stuff on hand for that. So it's good to always have some coins on hand, because you never know when you're going to use the restroom. Also, I highly, highly, highly recommend breaking your bills down as much as you can in very public places, such as a mall, for example. Malls are a great place to take your bigger bills and break them down into smaller bills, because department stores almost always have good change. When you get into rural areas, when you get into more mom and pop shops, the likelihood that they're going to be able to make change for some of these bigger bills, even though they may not seem like much to us, like 1,000 peso is about $20. And so a lot of times that bill, a cab driver is not going to be able to break it. A local food stall, street stall is not going to be able to break it. It's really good to have a lot of small bills as opposed to big bills. And then what I do, and I really highly recommend this because you never know what can happen, take money and put it in a few different spots. Have an emergency fund and an emergency fund for your own emergency fund. Have it all in different bags. Just in case you get stuck and you've just got that one bag, you know, at least I have enough money for food, at least I have enough money for a cab. There's some money in everywhere just in case you get stranded or something happens. I know a lot of people that have had theft happen while they travel. We don't want that to happen to you, but if it does, having that backup is always helpful to prepare. Having all of your credit cards, 1, call them ahead of time, let them know you're going to be traveling, and 2, have a copy of all of those 800 numbers to call in case they get lost or stolen.
A printout.
A printout, yeah, a printout. Something to know that's really helpful for us, we actually had to use it, is that the 800 numbers of your credit cards you can call through Skype for free. So any 800 number you can call through Skype. So I had a problem where one of my credit cards had an issue. I was able to use the 800 number. I didn't have to use my cell phone or anything. I used Skype, was able to make the call, got it resolved. So remember, if you need 800 numbers, that is a great way to go using Skype. It makes it really easy. We arrived and thought, Grab. From our experience in Vietnam, the shared ride services were absolutely superior in terms of reliability, in terms of price, in terms of the vehicles you were in.
Yeah.
It was absolutely better. That was not the case in the Philippines. We did take Grab from the airport, and we did take Grab a few times. However, Grab tended to be more expensive, was a little harder to access in some other countries, and the taxis were really reliable and affordable. So we ended up taking taxis most of the time. One thing that we did notice was that a lot of the taxis, if you were going somewhere where they felt they couldn't get a return fare, they would add to the meter. So it would be meter rate plus a certain amount. Now sometimes we would say absolutely not, no, we're going to pay the meter rate. Other times we understood, it's hard for them, you're going out a distance, they're not going to get a return trip from there. You kind of have to compensate them a bit for that time. And I understand that. And then still, even with the extra amount that they asked for, it ended up being cheaper than Grab most of the time.
Comment below And let us know if you would like us to put together just in sort of like an introductory to Philippines, where you must visit and what's the most user-friendly destinations with small children. We're more than happy to do that. Hi, Lola. How are you?
There's a butterfly. And whenever we travel, whenever we see butterflies, that's her grandmother.